I know I'm a little late on this video, but what the fuck is going on with the Goblin Slayer anime? Yeah, this anime called Goblin Slayer dropped on Crunchyroll a little over a week ago, and the internet has lost its mind both attacking and defending this thing.
We are going to be discussing the controversy that has been going on in Goblin Slayer.
All of AniTube is in a race to see who can most cynically milk the most views out of everyone giving way too much of a shit about some crappy modern seasonal anime, as usual.
It's been a very long time since I've seen a series like this really generate so much discussion and just the community being so split.
If you're one of these people who are making these dumb arguments like Goblin Slayer is fetishizing / glorifying rape and baby goblin slaughter is fascist, etc, etc, then you better pay me tuition fee after this video cause I'm about to school your motherfucking stupid ass.
And you shouldn't watch the Goblin Slayer anime. You shouldn't watch it. I really don't think you should.
So I woke up this morning and spotted on Twitter that a couple of special snowflakes and cinnamon rolls out there in the world were particularly triggered at the anime Goblin Slayer and the first episode that has been released due to its graphic depiction of sexual violence towards women.
So there's a lot of buzzwords being thrown around. Edgelords, snowflakes, SJW, rape culture, maybe even some virtue signaling sprinkled in the mix. So I watched the first 2 episodes that are released so far. I read a bit of the manga, and I'm not gonna touch the light novel. That's just not my thing. So here's what I want to talk about. First, the anime. What did I think about the first 2 episodes? Was it good? Did I find it overtly sexual or offensive? That kind of thing. Next, the online discussion, or a new segment on our show, Outrage Talk. Finally, the sweet, sweet memes. Okay, the anime, and for the most part the manga, starts off as your average fantasy type of deal. You follow the main girl, she's a priestess, she's 15 years old, she wants to be an adventurer. But she's new to the adventuring game. So she goes to an adventuring guild, where they give her a porcelain rank tag, and right off the bat, we get some basic world building stuff and we establish various ranks of adventurers. She teams up with some cocksure newbies of various skill types and they head off to kill some goblins. Right off the bat, you can tell that these characters are a little overconfident, but other than a brief intro scene where we don't see much, this is all played very lightheartedly with like upbeat music. A lot of your average isekai style anime, the head boy adventurer is like your headstrong swordsman. The mage wears glasses and has a cute little hat. The karate girl seems like a strong female character. And the priestess is soft-spoken, blonde, giving off like an air of innocence type feel. She's all like, "Goblin desu ka?" And they're like, "Yeah, goblins, no problem." Well, just spoiler alert, they go into the cave and they get massacred. And I believe this is where people start to take umbrage with the anime. The goblins ambush them from behind, take out their mage with a poison dagger. The cute boy adventurer guy hits his sword on the roof of the cave and they fuck him up like off camera. The karate girl starts taking charge, but the big daddy goblin grabs her and throws her around. Then the little goblins tear off her clothes and, yeah, they like rape her as the priestess tries to heal the mage and escape. They shoot the priestess in the arm with an arrow. The goblins then rape a semi-conscious mage. That's when the priestess starts to pee herself and the Goblin Slayer arrives to methodically murder all of the goblins, even the goblin younglings. I should note, there is partial nudity in these scenes. I don't know what station this aired on in Japan, but it's slightly blurred in like risque places. Then we follow the Goblin Slayer as he slays goblins. After watching the first episode, I could see what people are talking about. But I was also a little underwhelmed, especially after seeing like thumbnails of people's reactions. You'd think the scene was like 45 minutes long or something. But generally, I liked the conceit of the first episode. You set up your cliche adventuring crew, have them like express their, as well as the audience's, preconceived notions about goblins, then have them get brutally massacred. I thought this was okay. Not amazing, but okay. I think they were struggling to find their tone here. I want to talk more about this later, but it's obvious that Goblin Slayer, both the anime and whatever of the manga, are trying to appeal to the isekai crowd, the violent anime crowd, and the ecchi, pervy folks all at once. In the second episode, we get another dose of these three styles. We get the cute music, the somber little intro. We get Goblin Slayer murdering goblins in a pretty brutal way. And in the scene after the intro, we get a vulgar display of cake. So it's probably just going to be a tonal tug of war. Did I mind this? Not really. In episode 2, the story and the world start to open up more, and we get to know who the Goblin Slayer is. So there is an actual story and mythos being established. And it's moderately interesting so far. Also, the 3D CGI isn't that bad. It's obviously not ideal, you can tell in places, but we've seen it done a lot worse. Honestly, it's not my favorite anime out right now, but it's decent. Would it be better if they got rid of some of the pervy stuff? Probably, but from what I'm seeing online, this is part of how the manga grew its audience. Not the sole reason, but it played a part in it. Now, Outrage talk. I think people were waiting for something to get angry about because the discussion of this has gone insane. Admittedly, I encountered a lot more people defending this anime than bashing it, but there are a lot of people who didn't like the first episode. I just couldn't find them under the constant stream of tweets and memes bashing SJW snowflakes. People were talking about this anime like it was the next Berserk or something, which is good because no one acknowledges the 2017 Berserk. So let's look at some of the negative things people said first. We got this tweet from Mother's Basement, and yeah, people really went after this guy. Welp, Goblin Slayer is well and truly repugnant. Didn't think I'd see a show out-edge Magical Girl site, but this takes the cake. Feels like it was written by a 14-year-old. So is it legitimately bad, or is this just a taste thing? Let me put it this way. I called Who Died based on their character designs from scene 1. And they start raping the characters before they've established their personalities. It's not good. Well, he isn't wrong. I mean, they weren't about to rape that boy. Then we just get a bunch of tweets. Basically, people calling it edgelord trash and mentioning that it sexualizes the rape scenes. Those seem to be the major points of contention. I think the rape is the more overtly controversial point. TB Skin had an interesting point.
So, Goblin Slayer. I like this story a lot, actually. I really like the manga. First of all, the artwork is absolutely top tier. It has really, really, really excellent artwork. And it's got a really interesting cast of characters. It deals very interestingly with very heavy themes that a lot of anime and manga doesn't really want to deal with. Stuff like how trauma affects people. Stuff like, the consequences of certain kinds of myopia from people in power. And we're gonna get to all of that. I like the manga a lot, but I don't recommend it to people because this is where people are gonna start getting angry at me. Goblin Slayer is a deconstruction.
Cool. He goes on to make some valid points about things he doesn't really like later on in the anime.
But then I watched the anime. And this is why I think you should not watch the Goblin Slayer anime. Because the anime thinks that when the goblins rape a woman, that's sexy. But the way that it's framed in the episode, the way that it's framed visually, the way that it's presented, the way that the camera lingers on it, the way that there's multiple shots lingering on it, showing the goblins beating a woman brutally before making motion. Again, it's not directly pornographical, but they make you see movement happen and you know what it means. When I saw it, much more so than in the manga, it's yeah, they tend to be big titty anime babes, but the story seems to understand that it's supposed to be horrifying, and the way that the artist uses light and dark and and the way that they draw, and they seem to understand that it's supposed to be horrifying, that it's supposed to be revolting and disgusting and terrifying, and they seem to be trying for that. But the anime doesn't seem to get it. It doesn't seem to understand that this is not supposed to be hot. It frames it, and it shoots it, and it shows it in a way that makes it seem like it's taking its cues from hentai.
And he has a good point, albeit a belabored point. And he was talking about the anime. I think this applies at least partially to the manga as well. There's some kind of pervy stuff in the manga. They knew what they were doing when they animated that rape scene. Personally, I think they are intentionally appealing to young boys. Is that a problem? Probably. The second point is this anime is just edgelord garbage.
The Pedantic Romantic made an interesting video about Goblin Slayer.
So, you dislike SAO, do ya?
No, not really.
Surely you're familiar with one of the most constant and convincing critiques of that series.
That it becomes an aimless harem after season 1 and the show never regained its initial appeal, even with the Gunworld stuff.
Heck, even many fans of the show will admit that Reki Kawahara's continual and gratuitous use of rape is an issue. And the main issue with it is that Kawahara seems entirely unable to come up with ways to get you to hate a primary antagonist except by making them a rapist. It's the quickest way to create a villain out of a character. And hey, that may result in a lazy, dull, unnuanced, and cliched villain, but it'll get you one nonetheless. If you agree with that critique of SAO, and you should because it's a correct one,
A little arrogant.
and you still think Goblin Slayer is good, you're a hypocrite, because that is the literal premise of this series. However, none of this changes the fact that the conceit of this show is a dude killing bad guys that are bad in large part because they rape a lot. My complaint here isn't even that the rape is gratuitous or problematic or anything like that, so you can go shove your "but the rape isn't that bad in the light novel, only the manga does that" up your goblin dick sleeve.
There's an image.
But oh, you may be saying, what about the intriguing moral quandary at play? The series certainly explores the moral implications of a race that is inherently evil, ending its first episode with our prospective character wincing over Mr. Slayer murdering goblin babies. But that whole philosophical question is fucking stupid. The series makes this out as if it's supposed to even approach being an interesting concept, a study in when killing is justified, of a utilitarian greater good scenario. It's in the vein of the...
And I can agree with this, at least partially. The series is lacking in moral ambiguity. I don't know if that makes it utter nonsense, but this is where things get a little interesting.
Somewhat telling that the characterization the series ended up using to create villains of the goblins is basically a hodgepodge of all sorts of racist propaganda from throughout the centuries. There's of course the obvious, "those foreigners are coming to rape your white daughters," but it goes deeper than that. As a race, goblins are weak creatures, but they are tricky and conniving and just breed so dang quickly. That's how they manage to remain a threat. This is exactly how white supremacists explain the other races causing issues for white people when they are supposedly the superior race. Goblins themselves have a long history as a Jewish caricature, being hook-nosed creatures who hole up in their caves hoarding its initial use. Now, calm the fuck down this instant and listen carefully. Am I saying that the author is racist? No. Am I saying I'm not saying it's racist. I'm saying that it's fucking lazy. If your characterization of your villains is literally as flat and unnuanced as fucking racist propaganda, then I'm sorry to say that you have written a piece of shit.
I think these are all valid points. There is a level of maybe laziness, maybe a general lack of subtlety or nuance to the story.
Without getting too pretentious about it, Goblin Slayer isn't the hill anyone should die on. Goblin Slayer is a chicken sandwich. It's not a steak dinner. Don't think much about it. I kind of agree. It's not that complex. At least so far it's not. I know it goes into some deeper themes. Why is everyone so pretentious about anime all of a sudden? Like, I knew people got worked up about Naruto on YouTube, but like, damn. I'm a simple guy. I'm an old guy. I just watch anime. Maybe I like it, maybe I don't. Maybe I make a YouTube video about it. Then I go out and I bullseye some womp rats in my T16. I didn't know people got all personal and high-minded about cartoons. Like, can we all just step back and sheathe our college degrees for a moment? Some people got really worked up about criticism of Goblin Slayer.
Well, it's the same for your recent videos, Jeff. You people go on Twitter and other social media sites and cry about it like a little bitch, talking about how it's edgy and shit, like fucking idiots. Well, then I'm sorry that you got such fucking sensitive nips that they get erect whenever you're even remotely offended.
Obviously, a lot of people are really interested in this series now. I think I'm gonna watch it for a bit. A lot of people praise the show's dark themes and whatnot. It does deal with some, like, deep, more complex themes. I'm just not seeing them so far. I mean, this Outrage is working out well for the anime because it's like #1 on Crunchyroll's trending this week. And proving just how out of touch I am, JoJo's is the only anime I currently watch on this list. But this brings us to a part of the Outrage I can kind of understand. Crunchyroll rated this anime PG.
Different. Well, here's the main thing. It's mostly due to the fact that people walked into it blindly, not expecting to see it, and Goblin Slayer on Crunchyroll had a TV PG rating on it. And I'd be also a little bit peeved if, I had somebody else, like a child, or somebody else I didn't want to see this kind of crap get exposed to it. It would be extraordinarily awkward. So yes, a lot of the complaints about this show came from pretty much the place you go to watch anime in the first place, Crunchyroll.
Yeah, Crunchyroll. That's where we watch anime. Yeah, Crunchyroll.
However, since then, Crunchyroll has done an amazingly good play by just issuing a content warning and of course changing the rating of the show to give people a heads up on what they're getting into, which is what it should have had in the first place.
And Lost Pause brings up some good points here and arranges his ideas a lot more clearly than I do. Don't watch him. But when I first saw like the Goblin Slayer images, I thought isekai nonsense and I dismissed it. I have a feeling that might have been a big surprise for some people who clicked on this not knowing, thinking like, oh, it looks like Sword Art Online. It's probably a good thing they have a warning on there now. A big question I had, and honestly everyone who was alive to remember Y2K, was, did you forget the 90s happened? Like, 80s and 90s anime were like way darker or edgier. Like, I'll be honest, a lot of it was just shock value and it was like overtly sexual. Everyone is pointing to Berserk, but there are plenty of other things you can point to. Like Ninja Scroll is a big one that a lot of people have seen, and it's a little more sexually explicit. Urutsuka Doji, can't find an image of that right now. I think the difference is those weren't rated PG, and they didn't have young, wide-eyed, big-breasted protagonists. Bottom line, does Goblin Slayer sexualize rape? Yeah, kinda. Are you a horrible person for watching Goblin Slayer? You probably are, but I don't think that has anything to do with this anime. It's honestly probably benign. People are gonna stop talking about it in a week. Well, the response defending Goblin Slayer has been overwhelming. Most of this was seen through the use of memes. Well, the memes, the sweet, sweet memes. First off, everyone is comparing Goblin Slayer to Doom Guy because they both are violent and have their faces covered. And everyone brings up the fact that this show drank Berserk's milkshake.
Is this a goblin?
Get this shit out of here. Why do people keep using this meme?
Manga, anime, Netflix adaptation.
Then we have some irreverent memes.
When your boyfriend's good with kids. When he picks you up and spins you around. We got this one kicking around. Of course, it took someone like all of 5 seconds to think of the Anakin meme. I don't want to go on an adventure. I want to slay more goblins. This one's rough. Girl, come over. Goblin Slayer. I can't. I'm killing goblins. Girl, I'm home alone. Goblin Slayer. I don't care. I think there are footprints in front of my house. Who would watch something so violent? Berserk fans.
The normie tears
seem to be popular with the kids. My favorite is the A Common Mistake for Beginners. Honestly, Goblin Slayer is more of a meme than an anime in my eyes. A shorthand for the ridiculous time we live in outrage culture. The anime will probably fade away after a few seasons and the outrage dies off. And hopefully it will live on as a meme. Honestly, I think this is just kind of a decent anime. Pretty average. I don't see myself fanboying this anime, but if it's like the manga, it could get pretty good. But I don't think this is like a piece of art or anything we should critique deeply.
Much less get offended about. Transition. Yeah, Goblin Slayer. I thought it was okay. I was really more interested in how offended everybody got about it. I don't think it works very well as an action anime. I don't really think it works that well as an isekai. I don't really like that kind of thing. Kind of a boring hentai, to be honest with you. Were you offended by any of the things you saw? Did you grow up in the 90s? Have you seen Berserk? Let me know.